All right, everyone, welcome. Thank you guys so much for joining us. My name is Anastasia. I'm one of the environmental educators here at the Vermont Institute of Natural Science. And I just want to start off by saying we miss you guys so much. VINS has never had to be closed for this long, and we truly miss having the public in here. But we really appreciate you still supporting us during this time. As a nonprofit, we depend solely on admissions, memberships, and private donations to keep us funded, taking care of our animals. So we really appreciate all of you guys supporting us during this time. One of our guests is real excited to come out and meet all of you guys. So yeah, I just want to give you a little brief history of VINS. We are a nonprofit nature center located in Quechee, Vermont, and our whole mission here is to inspire and really gain enthusiasm with people so that they can care about the natural world. And we do this through wildlife rehabilitation, education, and citizen science and research. So we really want to get everybody involved. We're almost there, we're almost ready for them. But yeah, so today we are actually going to be learning about cavity nesters. This week's theme is the life cycle of a tree, and oftentimes trees are really playing a huge role by providing housing, providing homes and different sorts of things like that, food, shelter, for lots and lots of different animals. And even once they've died, they still are really important to the ecosystem, providing lots of homes for cavity nesters. What is a cavity nester? Well, a cavity nester is an animal that chooses to live inside of a cavity as opposed to building a nest. So one example of that is a dead tree that might have a hollowed out hole in it. That would be a perfect cavity for lots of different critters to live in. So without further ado, I will grab our first guest who is quite ready to meet you guys. So yeah, just give me one moment and I'll go get him. All right, so this is my first guest. His name is Westford, and he is an American kestrel. This is actually a type of falcon, so you guys might be familiar with his larger cousin, the peregrine falcon. But this guy is full grown. He's not going to get any bigger than this. And a peregrine falcon actually nests on a cliffside. They don't do a ton of nest building themselves, but they don't live inside of a cavity. This guy, however, does live inside of a cavity. So before I get started, I want to tell you a little bit about the life cycle of a tree. So many of us might know that all trees start out as a seed. And once they've begun to grow, they become a sprout or a seedling. Once they get a little bit bigger than that, they become a sapling. And it takes many years, but they will grow big and tall and become a mature tree. When they're a mature tree, the tips of their branches are all in the canopy and the emergent layer of the forest, and they provide lots of housing for different creatures and shelter for creatures that are living on the forest floor. So they're really important. But even once that tree dies, it still plays a really important role in the habitat, in our ecosystem, by providing housing to birds such as this American kestrel. And they use this cavity during breeding season to raise their young in an area that's protected from the elements, protected from predators, but accessible to them so that they can keep returning to bring food to their young until they're ready to fledge or fly off on their own. So I've been working on this trick with Westford to kind of show you guys what it looks like when an American kestrel is going in and out of his cavity. And today, since I don't have a dead tree to show you guys, we actually have a nest box. And the reason that it's really awesome that we can use nest boxes is because American kestrels and lots of other cavity nesters don't mind that it was made by a human. They will move right in just fine, and they'll thrive there. And actually, the American kestrel, right now, their populations are declining everywhere except for the southeast. So some of those southern states on the East Coast still have a very steady American kestrel population. But in some other places, basically the rest of the country, they are on the decline. We don't know exactly why they're on the decline, but we do have some suspicions. One being that habitat loss. So these guys are really, really sensitive to their environment, and they need to have adequate habitat to be able to hunt and feed their young and also find a place to live. And with lots of construction, not only with building homes, but also agriculture is a really big threat to habitat, because these guys need, some large, they need large meadows. They really like grasslands. They're kind of a grassland specialist in that way. And when you just have a large field growing only one single type of crop, it really reduces the diversity and abundance of bugs, or insects, which are what these guys primarily eat. They are known for their ability to eat things that are larger than that, such as, a small songbird, but for the most part, they thrive on eating insects, and they need to have a lot of them. So if there's huge swaths of land that are just taken up growing, say, one thing like corn, you're not going to see as many insects there. And you're actually not going to see a diversity of lots of different types of wildlife, not just insects, but you're not going to see different types of plants and birds, all that great stuff that we like to see in a healthy, diverse habitat. So Westford here, the reason he's with us is because he was actually imprinted when he was young. So someone either found him outside of the nest, or they actually abducted him from the nest and tried to raise him as their own. And at some point they realized that this was not a good pet. They are obligate carnivores, so they only eat meat. That gets kind of expensive. They're also not pets, they're wild animals. So they're not going to respond to a human's affection or things like that the same way that your dog might. And you have to be really, really careful about how you take care of them. They need lots of special vitamins, so it's a lot more difficult to care for these, and that's why only licensed rehabilitators or falconers are allowed to have these guys and take care of them. So without further ado, I'm going to get started with one of the tricks that I've been working on with Westford, the nest box. Right now I have it covered because he is really enthusiastic about going in there, and I want to keep him from flying in there without me asking him to. So without further ado, this is our nest box. Now I'm going to try and use my body to sort of shield him from the nest box. Although he is trying to peek around, he really, really likes that nest box. And what I do is I actually give him a treat, a little piece of food in there, so he is motivated to fly into the box. But I also have a treat for him when he finishes his food in there and comes back to my glove. So let's see him go. All right. So one thing that's really important about the nest box is that they have a big enough hole for them to enter and exit. It also needs to be spacious enough that they can kind of walk around in there and have room to raise their young. Kestrels are not known for really making super neat nests. They don't do too much work, actually, to make their nest look good. What they will do is they'll pretty much kick things around in there, but for the most part, if there's some pine shavings or whatever, that's quite enough for them to feel comfortable moving in. So when you do have a nest box on your own property, if you're interested in such a thing, they are going to ask you to, just once a year put in some pine shavings or something like that so that there's a substrate in there for them. Now, one other really important key feature about the nest box is that there's drainage holes. You don't want this thing to be getting flooded when it rains. In the wild, when they are living in a dead tree or something of that manner, there often is some form of drainage so that they can not get waterlogged in there, because that's really important that it stays nice and dry. Otherwise, the chicks will get too cold. Now, an interesting thing about most raptors is that they tend to remain with the same partner year after year. So this is really, really cool. Sorry about that, guys. So this is a really awesome thing that they can do. Sorry about that, guys. So yeah, American kestrels, they will have the same partner year after year, and they'll actually return to the same nest site. And this is really, really convenient for scientists who want to study American kestrel populations because it makes it really convenient when they're going to return year after year. Now, there are a lot of resources that you can use if you're interested in building your own nest box. One that I love bringing up is the Peregrine Fund. They actually have their own branch that specializes just in American kestrels, called the American Kestrel called the American Kestrel Partnership. Oh, not yet, Westford. And basically what this does is they have lots of information that shows you how to build your own nest box, but also the importance of it and how to monitor it if you're interested in getting involved in some citizen science. People have actually installed little cameras in there, and you can watch the kestrels grow up and finally leave the nest. It's a really, really awesome experience just for your own enjoyment. And also, it's very helpful to scientists. If you're willing to go the extra mile and monitor those nests and report back if they've been occupied, how many babies they have, it's actually a whole lot of fun, and it gives you a real sense of participation in helping these guys. So even though we might not be able to find out exactly the reason what's going on, we'll be able, or why their populations are declining, we'll be able to learn a lot more about why, about how they can, we can learn a lot more about how their populations are doing, if they're still in the decline in certain areas, and how many partners are returning. Now, with Westford, I mentioned he was imprinted, so he actually doesn't have the same natural instinct to mate with another kestrel the way that they should. He actually sometimes looks towards humans and starts making courting displays, which is not ideal, but that's why he has to live in captivity. He really wouldn't see another kestrel and recognize that as a mate, so he would not be successful in the wild. All right, so we've got some questions coming in from you guys, and I want to take a few minutes to answer those. One of the questions was, do they pick certain tree species? To my knowledge, they don't pick species of trees in particular, but really the placement of the tree and the condition of the tree is much more important. So these guys, they prefer to be near big open areas because they're hunting insects in meadows and grasslands. So they're going to want to find a tree that's nearby those hunting grounds because when baby season comes around, they are going to be making many, many trips back and forth to the nest. In fact, often when they're catching insects, they sort of just toss them back in the nest, and the siblings have to scramble to get them, and both parents are rotating to get as many insects as possible to feed those babies up. So what these guys are really looking for is good placement. So if you have a big open yard or a big field on your property, towards the edge of the field where it starts to meet with the wooded area might be an ideal place to put that nest box. And I will say on the Peregrine Fund, there is a lot of really great information to guide you towards putting the nest box in the correct place. And I got another question, what do you feed him? Do I feed him insects? Well, every once in a while, we will give him a treat. If there's a cricket jumping around, sometimes we'll toss it in his enclosure and he'll go after it and have a ball. Sometimes we'll give them a few mealworms or something like that. But for the most part, we feed him meat, which consists of mice, small rodents, stuff like that. Because actually in the wild, these guys might eat small mice in instances. Definitely they'll eat songbirds and stuff like that. But these guys are obligate carnivores. So we need to make sure that they're getting lots and lots of protein, lots of meat. And we also supplement their diet with vitamins because just that meat alone wouldn't be enough. They might have some deficiencies. So we make sure to give them vitamins that will help to supplement that. All right, now we have a few more resources that I wanted to share with you guys about nest boxes. The other one is actually nestwatch.org. This is funded through the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, and they have tons of citizen science projects that you can get involved in. And one of them is the kestrel nest box. So you guys can go on there, get lots of information, see how kestrels are doing in your area, and also get plans, things like that, to build your own nest box if you're interested. These guys are known for having really incredible, these guys are known for having really awesome family units. Sometimes they'll have as many as 5 fledglings, although that's kind of a big number, but it's really exciting when you get to see them grow up from just being a little fluff ball into an awesome predator like Westford. All right, now I have another guest that I want to bring out for you guys. Maybe I'll let Westford do his trick one more time because he really does enjoy it. Maybe he doesn't enjoy it, but he likes the food he gets inside. And it's really awesome to get to see these guys performing a behavior that they would do in the wild. So if you had a nest box on your property, you might see the parents coming in and out through the hole, just like Westford is now. And it's really adorable when you see a few faces poking out of babies that are not quite ready to leave, but waiting for their parents to come back to feed them. So Westford here, here we go, good boy. Westford here is, I mentioned this before, he is a full-grown adult. He is a full-grown adult, so he's not getting any bigger than this. He does weigh about 110 grams, which is comparable to a stick of butter. So he's pretty small and he's not getting any bigger, but he is a really awesome, fierce predator, and he is an important part of this ecosystem. So definitely we need to take care of these guys, look out for them so that they are healthy and have stable populations in the future to come. All right, I'm going to put him back and I'm going to get our next guest out. So just bear with me for a moment. All right, this is our next guest. His name is Miami, and he is an eastern screech owl. And what he's got in his mouth there is a tiny little mouse leg. So just like our American kestrel and all other raptors, they are obligate carnivores. They have to eat meat, and he is no different. But one big difference about the American kestrel and the eastern screech owl is that they have a lot of different hunting styles, and they do live in different habitats. But they actually are both cavity nesters, and they occupy the same size nest as the American kestrel. So if you live on a property that has more open woodland, that's more of a suitable habitat for an eastern screech owl. Now with these guys, their populations are pretty stable throughout the country except for the Northeast. I mentioned that the American kestrel, their populations are declining pretty much throughout the country except for the Southeast. And a few of our suspicions are habitat loss. One thing I might have sort of brushed over was that there aren't as many insects available to them, not just because of habitat loss and agriculture, but also because we use a lot of different insecticides. So we spray tons of stuff to kill insects so that they're not damaging our crops or eating the food that we're trying to grow. But a unintended consequence of that is there's not enough insects for other animals that rely on them to eat. So it's not just our American kestrels. Lots of different songbirds also rely on a lot of insect abundance for their survival. Now, this little screech owl here, he also is considered an insectivore. He eats lots and lots of insects. But I mentioned he kind of prefers more of a woodland habitat. And even though he is an owl, he prefers to hunt during dusk or at very beginning of dawn. So towards the really end of the night and in the very, towards the really beginning of the night and end of the night, because he's so small, he's actually a potential prey item for some of the bigger owls, like the barred owl and the great horned owl. So those guys are out hunting in the middle of the night, so he kind of sticks to dusk and dawn. Like I mentioned before, he is an insectivore, but he might also eat mice from time to time, other small available prey. But he hunts in a completely different fashion. So our American kestrel has incredible eyesight, and he's looking for his prey, whereas Miami the screech owl is listening for his prey. So you might notice that he has these really tall ear tufts here. Those ear tufts are not actually his ears. They don't help him hear at all, but they're helpful for camouflage because throughout the day, he likes to chill out really close to the tree, either the trunk of the tree, kind of near the branch where it's a good crux, and he'll kind of like lean up against that and be completely invisible. He doesn't blend into my all black shirt very well, but if you were to go out and put him in front of a tree, he would just disappear except for his little eyeballs. And those ear tufts help to break up his silhouette. If there was a round head, that might stick out to a predator or an animal. So he has these ear tufts to help him hide. Now, Miami here, he has another interesting story why he's with us. When he was a little baby, he was actually living in a dead tree, as they do. So they go for a little cavity that might be found in a dead tree, also known as a snag. And this dead tree was on somebody's property, and they were concerned that the tree was going to fall down and hit their house, injure, damage their property. So they decided to preemptively go out there and cut that tree down. But they didn't realize that there was a little nest full of screech owls. So what wound up happening is all the little screech owls tumbled out, and they were brought to a nearby rehab center. And from my understanding, The other screech owls were not injured in any way, so they were able to be rehabbed and released back into the wild. But Miami is actually blind in one eye. He got a little neurological damage, and because of that, he can't see out of one eye. Oftentimes with some of our larger owls, they can actually survive one eye. But because this guy is a potential prey item to so many other animals, he really needs to be able to be as alert as possible to avoid getting captured. So it was thought he actually wouldn't do very well in the wild with only one eye functioning. So that's why it was decided he would be now, what's interesting about Miami, we name all of our birds after where they come from, where they were found, and Westford was found in Westford, Vermont. He is Vermont born and raised. Miami, however, was born in Florida. And because of this, he's actually a Floridian subspecies. So really, really interesting thing about lots of different birds is that they start to adapt to a specific environment, even though they are still considered the same species. And if by chance they were to come in contact with a screech owl, say, from a different area, they might still be, or they're still compatible mates, but because they don't see each other, they live in different areas, they have been able to kind of get some adaptations that have allowed them to specialize even more. Screech owls don't migrate the way northern saw-whet owls do. So the northern saw-whet owl is actually the smallest owl found in Vermont, and they migrate. They get out of town. But the screech owl sticks here all winter long. So in Vermont, they're actually a little bit bigger than Miami, and they have fully feathered legs and feet so that they can stay warm during our cold winters. Now, Miami, who's from Florida, he does not need to have warm, fuzzy legs. He actually needs to keep cooler. So his legs are actually bald. I don't know if you'll be able to see him that well because he's kind of tucked in. But doesn't have any feathers on his legs, and that helps him to keep cool. But these guys are really, really incredible birds. And I was mentioning before, just like the kestrel, you can set up a nest box and you might have a family of screech owls move on in. There are a couple other awesome resources that I want to bring your attention to where you can find out information not just about screech owls, but about lots of different cavity nesters. If you're interested in having them move into your property and perhaps monitoring them and contributing to some research. Another really great resource is Audubon.org. Audubon also has plans, but they have a lot of great tips. For instance, a screech owl nest, you probably want it to be facing the south because they like to kind of get as much warmth as possible. So if you have that nest box facing the north, they might not occupy it because they think this isn't suitable. It's going to be too cold for my babies. So it's really, really great to do some extra research there, and that'll help you to be more successful in having a nest box occupied on your property. I mentioned that the screech owl is in the decline in the northeast. So we're seeing that their populations are pretty stable elsewhere, but in the northeast, they tend to be going down. One reason we suspect is that the northeast is really being reforested with more older growth forests. So back by the 1900s, pretty much in New England, up to 70% of our forests were cut down for grazing. We had a lot of sheep here. So for a while, when those forests were starting to return, we had a lot more open woodland habitat, but now we're having more deep forested habitat, which is more ideal for the barred owl. So our barred owl populations are definitely going up, but our screech owl populations appear to be going down. We don't know that for sure, but that's one of our suspicions, and by having more nest boxes being monitored, we'll be able to learn a lot more about this, and you guys can contribute yourself. So we're getting a few questions in, and one of them is, will he eat mosquitoes? He probably would if it was presented to him, but for the most part, he hunts insects that are a little bit bigger than that. Think about things like dragonflies and crickets, grasshoppers, kind of meatier insects. The mosquitoes are pretty small, so he'd have to eat tons of them. But that being said, he might, if it were to fly by his face. He's got, well, most screech owls, ones that don't have injuries, have really, really good, ear-mouth coordination. So they're able to figure out where something is and grab it with their mouth. One thing that is really interesting about the owls, all owls in general, is that they don't have very good eyesight. They're kind of far-sighted. So they can see well enough to navigate their surroundings, avoid running into things, but they're also really relying on hearing to be able to do that. They can actually triangulate sounds, so they'll hear something and they'll be able to know where it's coming from just by moving their face around, moving their facial disc around to collect that sound and get an accurate description, or get an accurate reading of where that prey might be. And with screech owls, they actually have whiskers, and also other owls, they have whiskers all around their mouth, and that is what helps them to find things up close. So he can actually snatch a grasshopper right out of the air. He can grab it with his little feet. They hunt usually grabbing things with their feet, and then he'll kind of move his mouth around to sort of search for the food to see if he can find it, because it's a little bit difficult for him to find. I'll see if he can demonstrate for you here. Now, I put a little piece of food right on my glove, but he doesn't really see it. So I generally have to kind of like show him, or even sometimes brush his whiskers a little bit so that he knows where the food is. We've got a few more questions in. Will he eat spiders? Probably. I mean, if it's crawling around in his vicinity, he's willing to eat lots of things. And just like our kestrel, he might diverge a little bit and eat a rodent if it's available to him, a small mouse. But for the most part, insects are a lot more abundant, so that's what he heavily relies on. One thing that's been noticed about animals, or about these raptors, is that they sometimes kind of fall into a pattern. For instance, an American kestrel might be more used to eat, or he might be really good at catching songbirds, so he relies more heavily on that instead of going for insects. And the same can be true for other birds. They might actually have a preference for a certain prey item, and even though they're considered an insectivore, they might diverge a bit. So there's lots of different prey items that they might eat. They might even eat small reptiles, so a tiny snake or lizard, which are a lot more prevalent in the south. So a Floridian subspecies of a screech owl is probably more likely to get eaten by this. All right, so I think I have time for one more question, and then we're gonna kind of put him away and we'll give you guys a little wrap up. But do they nest near swamps or ponds? So as these guys are cavity nesters, they're often gonna be in a dead tree, and sometimes there are dead trees near ponds or swamps, and what is also found near ponds or swamps are lots of insects. So that's totally possible. He likes to be in a little bit more covered area, but that's totally possible. He's probably not going to be fishing in the pond, but he might eat some of the insects that are nearby. All right, so I just really want to tell you guys we appreciate so much that you're tuning in, and we want to let you know that we've got a lot more programs headed your way. We actually have, this Friday at 3 o'clock, we have Campfire Story, so please tune in for that. We're going to try to continue getting as much programming online for you guys during this closure, but we are so excited to have you guys come back once we're able to open once again. And just another reminder, we are a wildlife rehabilitation center, so we take in avian wildlife and we try and rehabilitate them. So in the event that you have found an injured bird, or you think you see an injured bird, give us a call and we can talk through this. We can also perhaps help you to catch the animal if he needs to be caught, or she. But also we might be able to tell you to leave it be. A great example is baby bird season is coming up. And oftentimes we got a lot of baby fledgling birds that are actually totally safe. They would have been fine, but because we see a little baby bird that looks kind of ugly hopping around, we think, oh, it's injured, we should help. But in fact, parents are probably nearby, keeping an eye on him as they're showing him how to hunt. So we do really, really appreciate you giving us a call saying, hey, we think we see this bird. What should we do? That number is 802-359-5000, extension 212. So we still are taking in injured birds, and we have a system set up so that there's a contactless exchange of the bird so that we can get that bird into our rehab and hopefully back out in the wild as soon as possible. So yeah, I just want to say thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you tuning in. Miami also appreciates you guys tuning in, and hopefully you learned something new. And another thing I wanted to mention before I go, Project Nest Watch is a really incredible citizen science project that you guys can all get involved in. And if you're not interested in having a raptor live on your property, lots of different songbirds would also inhabit a great nest box if you were to put it out there. Here on campus, we have tons of different nest boxes all over, and we're seeing lots of new birds inhabit them, which is really, really exciting. So I just want to let you guys know that that's something you guys can get involved in. And we do have a nest box video on our Facebook, so go ahead and check that out. And one last resource that I really want to invite all of you guys to try out is iNaturalist. Our environmental educator, Anna, did an incredible job explaining iNaturalist, why it's really, really great to get involved, and how easy it is to use. So if you guys are interested in spotting more wildlife, identifying more wildlife, and helping out with citizen science, other scientists around who are trying to study populations, we would love for you guys to download the app and start going out taking pictures of wildlife and identifying them. So thank you guys so much. We really, really appreciate it, and I hope you have a wonderful Earth Day. All right. Bye, guys.